Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host Matt Goddard. Matt, welcome back from San Francisco. How was it?
It was awesome. I think I was always going to say that, wasn't I?
Yeah,
but I'm
absolutely.
back. It's not midnight. It's 8:30 on a Saturday morning. We're good to go, right?
Absolutely right. Yes, this is how focused we are on bringing all this news. But yes, there's a lot to get through as well. So let's kick off with our property news. All right. So first up this week, the start of indicators that the property market is not doing great. So there's a lot of noise out there about how transaction times are taking longer and longer and fall throughs are increasing. And it's one of those things that kind of we don't tend to talk about in the industry as an industry, because, you know, obviously confidence can take a knock if everybody's talking it down. But there's some pretty stark stats that have come out from the likes of Zoopla and Connells this week. Matt, I know you've been on the other side of the world. Have you caught up with any of this sort of stuff? And what's your kind of sense from talking to agents out there as well?
I've definitely not spoke to any agents over here during that time. So it was very much a geek conference. So there weren't that many agents at all at the event, despite the fact it was actually the boys at Ray White who suggested I go in the first place. But right. I don't actually think these stats are that groundbreaking, right? Or revelatory. Well, that's a great word for this time of morning.
Very good, man.
Like, one of the examples is that Connells said in April, so just last month, the average time from a property going under offer to exchange in Great Britain was 104 days. Now that's up from 76 days for them, 19.
Yes.
But actually, 104 isn't that out of whack with what other people are reporting, right?
No, not for the first stages. And yeah, I think over time we've kind of, if you do compare it to 2019 and then they also compare it back to like the 2010s.
Yeah, great. Why don't we go all the way back?
Exactly.
In the 1600s, we just exchanged some sheep for these houses.
Exactly, when I was a lad. But yes, I am minded to agree. I think this isn't like news. It's just got a stat attached to what is kind of happening. And again, I think we saw recently there was some comparison between different estate agents and how long they were taking. But yeah, I think it's worth just kind of reflecting on the fact that this is, it is a long time, right? My parents actually at the moment are trying to sell their place, and it's been
they on My
months.
Porter?
Of course they are. Absolutely.
Are they?
Yeah, that was the first place they listed. But yeah, it's been one of those things where it's just the change just keeps going, and you know, people kind of waiting on this and that, and there's one form that's not been put in the right place. So it is taking a long time. And I think everybody's got stories that they know people for whom this has been a problem. And that again is not wildly unusual. But I do think that, you know, with all of the different pressures, and we'll talk in a sec about estate agencies under pressure as well, it kind of needs to be focused on, right? You know, we were talking just off air about, you know, housing secretaries and things like that. You know, somebody really needs to get hold of this and try and actually cram it through. We've had the example of Scotland since, you know, I first entered the industry back in the early 2000s, as being like, you know, over there they do it quite well just north of the border. Why don't we do something similar here? And it's just like, and nobody's done anything. So I do think it's worth just kind of reflecting on the fact that we've accepted this suboptimal process for so long now, and it's just elongating everything and making it really, really difficult to, you know, to make a living in an industry that's worth however many billion/trillion, right?
It needs digitization, doesn't it? But then I saw a video, I can't remember who it was actually from now. I think it was from one of the guys at TM Group, where a very vital part of the process was actually housed up in a residential unit in the outskirts of Liverpool, and you had to go there in person or contact them manually. And it goes back to the conversation we've had before about Lonres, where one of the early things they did was go around the filing cabinets and actually digitize filing cabinets, right? And until we start doing that, I was fortunate, I guess is one turn of phrase, to be on a call about the new sort of property register as part of the Renters' Rights Act. And the conversations there are very, very early days, despite the fact that this is something that's been coming for a while. And it concerns me that we're getting better as a nation digitizing things like passport renewals, but actually a lot of the bits that are the plumbing underneath what we do in the property sector are still very manual and don't have that focus on them. I'm sure if we spend the money, we could do, but who's going to spend that money?
Yeah, exactly right. And you know, because it is such a fragmented industry, because, you know, there are conveyancers versus estate agents, and, you know, are conveyancers paid enough for them to focus on this? You know, all those kind of arguments that again have been swirling around for so long. But yes, this news this week that kind of has a focus on just how difficult it is, I think helps to kind of crystallize it. But yes, I would be unsurprised if we were doing episode 125 in a year's time, and this is still a problem because there's no indications, and particularly now the government is going into its own paroxysms of chaos, infighting. Yeah, that it doesn't get solved. But look, there's the numbers are out. It is Zoopla also put some numbers out there this week saying that basically over half of properties actually fall through, which again, is a bald and, crazy stat. There are wildly differing reasons why that might happen. Obviously, some people just speculatively put properties on the market because they know they don't have to pay unless it succeeds. But at the same time, that's a lot of effort for very little reward. So yeah, I think that's, as we kind of build up into the autumn, hopefully, things are going to start to move again. But it does seem, from what a lot of people are saying and a lot of the conversations that I've been having, that, people are almost anticipating that summer may be coming a bit earlier this year with the Iran war and all that sort of stuff, and depressing people's appetite for change. But yes, I guess we'll see how all that pans out as we go through. Another slightly second story that is less than joyful is, again, stories, articles that have come out this week about there's a sharp rise in estate agencies facing financial distress. Obviously, the first story kind of bleeds into this one, which is the fact that it takes so long to get access to the money. Cash flow is difficult because it's only upon the sale that actually the money comes into these estate agencies. There's that pressure. There is obviously, national insurance increased pressure, so much that is going into the kind of the indicators. Obviously we've spoken before about Rightmove and others, increasing prices, CRMs are increasing prices. It's tough out there for agents right now, right?
And I was particularly taken on this financial pressure articles by who the research comes from. It's Begbie's Trainer Group's Red Flag Alert report that found that they're in critical financial distress. I'm sure somewhere else hidden in that will tell us what Begbie Trainer Group's Red Flag Alert report is trying to sell us. But we know it's difficult, and if you're not selling houses, you're not making money, right? And that's before, like last week, you referred to the additional charges Rightmove are about to start levying on estate agents, which just takes another massive chunk out of their income as well, doesn't it?
It's just so hard, right? And and I think that obviously we spend a lot of time focusing on the AI side of things, how that can help productivity, and it really can. And look, this is a really, really important kind of moment. And perhaps as you look through the next 2-3 months, if the market itself is not as busy as it might otherwise be, this is the time to experiment. This is the time to really start looking at what those opportunities are for productivity improvements through AI and through other systematic, digitized ways of working that are going to help you in the business to actually be more productive and actually help your teams to go out and win more business. Because Begbie's Trainer, I think they are they're administrators. So I think what they're selling is basically the ability, if your business is about to go out of business, come and talk to us and we'll help you, blah, blah, blah. So yes, I think that's why they've kind of flagged this. But yeah, the numbers are pretty stark and pretty gruesome. 15.1% of property and real estate firms in critical financial distress compared to the same period last year, which is punchy, right? So yeah, listen, there are ways that you can improve those circumstances. It's just a moment in time, particularly now as we kind of head towards the summer, to kind of really look at what is possible, because so much, even the technology, which we will talk about, that is available now, the AI stuff out there right now, can significantly enhance what you're doing. So yes, it's a stark kind of warning, and the pressures are real, but there are things that can help to mitigate, and it's a good opportunity to kind of really refocus on what's costing you the most money, and actually can that be improved by technology. All right, our final story on property news is about some of those AI tools that are coming out of various different entities, and some stories about that. So we will just briefly touch on the Alto CEO, Ricardo Iannucci Dawson, has come out and basically slammed every other CRM. The CRM wars have been going on for a couple of weeks now, and with everybody kind of having their competing different, our AI is the best, no, our AI is the best. And yes, he's come out quite strongly yesterday morning, Friday, and basically saying that the AI your CRM is selling isn't AI, it's a promise. Now, that could be directed at a few of the others that have brought out various things over recent weeks. But his approach is slightly different, isn't it, Matt? And this is very much obviously in your kind of your wheelhouse. It's not actually that they're baking it into Alto; it's that they've got partners that have the links that have got the AI. Is that right?
I think from what I saw of their launch, I'm going to choose my words wisely. There's a few of the AI launches that happened over the last couple of years. If you think about sort of the CRMs that had the image edits built into the
Yeah.
CRM, or even the property descriptions, that almost that superficial sort of generative AI approach. And full enough, Ricardo in his article calls out that being the first stage of it. And from the launch, Alto seems to be just bringing those sort of superficial bits into the product, and then the rest were all geared around partners who are using AI. So it seems a little bit, and tongue in cheek's the wrong phrase, but the fact he's come out really aggressively, it feels to me like maybe their launch flopped a little bit, or maybe didn't have the reaction they were hoping for, because Repeat, A Street, Rex have all come out with these quite powerful, in-depth ones that
Mm.
utilize the wealth of data that maybe those newer CRMs I've touched on don't have in their systems, or data, as I've been getting told over the last week. And you and your kids would have loved it. Data, data, beta, bada, all that sort of stuff. But I don't really read these articles normally in the online press, because they strike me as like the celebrity gossip sections of the Sun. But he's obviously come out quite punchy in there, and it feels like almost that reactionary to how their launch went. And the good news is that these sort of articles are like the old-fashioned papers, aren't they? They're tomorrow's fish paper. So actually, once our pod's aired, people will forget about it, because I think the other CRMs have obviously gone in strong, and Alto maybe scrambling to see where they plug the gaps.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, digital fish paper. That's what this pod is.
I'm quite hungry
All
now.
right. It's probably about, I don't know, dinner time for you in your brain right now. All right. So also in the AI space, we've had a couple of other sort of entries. So Lunres, bit of a niche product in London, obviously, but very good. And as you said, they were how they set themselves up right at the start with the digitization of loads of filing cabinets properties was amazing. And 25 years later or whatever is still going great guns. But they've come out and said that they're launching some AI. And I just thought it was quite interesting that essentially they're kind of joining the party a little bit. It's called AI Boost. It's free for its agents and subscribers. And it says that they tag AI onto the property, and then it will be made available to some AI platforms. So it sounds interesting. It sounds, and fair play to them. Again, they're kind of putting something out there. But I thought what was really interesting as well was it very specifically, and it was almost like, don't worry, said this does not compete with the portals. It's like almost like that just made me wonder why they felt they had to say that. Is there some kind of thing underneath that is that they're concerned about that the portals might cut them off or something? Do you know what I mean? It was just a really kind of interesting sort of thing that they felt they had to put into the press release, was that we're doing this AI stuff, but it's not competing with portals. So no, just very interesting business that they are getting their AI in. And then the final one that we wanted to just touch on was Moneypenny's really quite interesting, punchy idea. So that they've got adverts out. I've received a lot of email shots from the news sources saying things like, selling the family home, there's nothing artificial about that, giving you real people for the calls that matter, and AI for the in-between. So they're really trying to make a virtue of the fact that they've got humans and AI at the same time. I just thought that was really interesting. What are your thoughts?
I think that's been key for them for a lot of this for probably a good year now, isn't it? We saw it with Klarna, where they went aggressive and got rid of all of their support because they felt actually we can get AI to do this, and AI can answer the phone calls. And maybe 3 or 4 months later, Klarna rolled back, and not rolled back, that's the wrong turn of phrase. They actually heavily invested in third lines. So normally the first line is like the loggers and floggers, take your ticket, say if you turned on the computer, it turns it off and on again. Then you go second line, and maybe say, actually, I'm now going to try and understand what you got. And then third line are the people actually pick it up and fix your problem, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that first and second line got replaced by AI and will continue to be. But Klarna then employed heavily in that third line, which is, you actually really want to speak to a human now because you have got a problem we can't fix. Here's Mal to speak to. I think that is really Moneypenny's sweet spot, is that all that automations of, I want to book a viewing on 3 Caldecott Road, well, that could be picked up and dealt with, or you're trying to get through to Mal and he's currently out on viewings, I'll take a message and pass it on. That is where AI excels. But actually, when you've got something really complex or just emotionally you want to speak to a human, that's where obviously Moneypenny can sit in and take those calls, which a lot of the AI phone answering systems won't have, will they? Unless obviously they just divert straight over to Moneypenny.
The agents, yeah, exactly. So so loggers and floggers. That's what we're calling the first line, is AI loggers and floggers. Brilliant. So yeah, again, lots and lots of different products and services kind of being advertised with AI baked in. I mean, yeah, just really interesting to see that the industry is kind of moving very significantly, I think, in the last few months into this world where everything has got AI somewhere in it, even from Lunres upwards. All right, that is our property news for this week. Let's focus in on our AI and tech news. All right, there is plenty to go at, isn't there, Matt? If we start with, should we start with Cerebras?
Yeah.
So this is a tech firm based over in the States. They had their IPO on Thursday, I think, wasn't it? So they floated on the stock exchange out there, and basically, these guys are all about the kind of their chips, but not quite as good as Nvidia, which is the market leader, and some of the others. But it just kind of goes to show just how much demand there is for this kind of power. So its share price popped by 108% or something like that on the first day, dropped a little bit back yesterday. For me, this just kind of indicates that, there are more IPOs coming later on this year. There will be. We're looking at definitely SpaceX, I think, which also has XAI in it. We're looking at OpenAI and potentially Anthropic as well. But the appetite for this is significant. And this relatively unknown and sort of, almost third tier kind of operator has suddenly managed to make an absolute fortune because, the appetite for compute is only going one way, as referenced by, the fact that even some of our, what you might call a sleepier property businesses are now firing on all AI in their kind of press releases and stuff. So Matt, what did you make of this?
Well, it's the first big IPO of 2026, isn't it? A tech IPO. So really sort of a lot of eyes on it with everything, as you alluded to, later this year. So certainly very interesting to see and obviously keep an eye on that now. Now that it's kicked in, I think, as you touched on, the talk about how we get more compute and get those resources coming through. I've heard just this week that Anthropic are now talking about sending things into space to try deal with, and that's not just because of doing the deal with Elon and sort of going on his mission to Mars. A lot of people are scrambling for this. The other thing I heard this week was that new build homes are actually going to be getting data centers built into them as well. So, and having like almost a node approach that every new home has a small computer running on there so that we could try deal with this. Because what the flip side of all this demand for compute is that people are doing the NIMBYism of I don't want data centers in my back door. So it's like I want all this AI, but not in my garden or not in my greenfield site. So it's interesting to just see how that continues to play out. And at the same time, and I know we sort of touched on it last week, but Anthropic doing one big last raise before they gun for that IPO as well, right? So just keeping an eye on the financial markets because the private markets have been chucking money over this hand over fist, haven't they?
Percent. And like you say, so with Anthropic kind of going out for 30 billion, a raise at like 900 billion valuation just before they're likely to float. And that apparently has been triggered because VCs actually approached them and kind of said, we want to put more money in. Can you give us some more shares? Exactly right. So this is going to be a huge second half of the year for kind of IPOs. But as you say, that Cerebras was the first big one for this year, and it's and all indicators are that the appetite for this is huge. So we will watch this space. All right. Next up, we want to talk about a bit about Codex, right? So Codex is the OpenAI version of Claude Code, or you could spin it the other way around if you want. But we have been waxing lyrical about Claude Code and how amazing that is, and how if you're using Claude Design or if you're using Claude Co-work, just how special it is. But Codex actually, I'm going to say kind of almost by stealth, even though they're obviously huge, seem to have caught up and overtaken them, right?
Very much so. And for me, the reason that Claude came to such prominence was probably start with over the Christmas period where people had a bit of time off and were hacking around with Claude Code and putting things together very much in that vibe coding sort of a way. And, people like you or I, or maybe slightly more technical leaning people had already got wind of it. But then co-work was such a shift because it suddenly said, well, don't worry about Claude Code and the fact you need to run it in a terminal, and it's very sort of tech forward in that respect. Here's something that's a bit more approachable, and co-work was what we all leaned into. And co-work's been brilliant, although one of the challenges is that if you've got co-work running on your laptop and you then want to do something while you're out and about, you can interact via dispatch, which is one of the features you can use on your mobile, but that relies on the laptop still running. So if you find yourself in San Francisco, for example, and trying to get some information off it and that laptop's not connecting anymore, then you can't do anything anymore. And that's where other providers like Perplexity Computer and Manus, who are good pals of the show, and they now listen, having met them at the conference, and Victor there will be giving us a like and subscribe, I'm sure, with the rest of the Manus gang. But these ones where they're always with you. And Codex is sort of, as you say, by stealth, because it's not done the pivot of saying here's a non-tech friendly version like Cowork
Mm,
did. It's
mm.
continued being Codex, yet taking on the non-coding type approaches where you want to prep for a meeting or do some research or produce some documents. Codex
Yeah.
hasn't created a new app for that. It's very much heading towards this OpenAI super app, which is going to combine Codex and ChatGPT and their Atlas browser all into one significant product, which I think will probably come later this year. And so actually, without saying Codex now works for the layperson, Codex is now working for the layperson. And we've probably not covered that enough, which is why it's sort of coming through in stealth. And what's just been released last night is now Codex is in your ChatGPT mobile app. So if you do want to
Mm.
ask something of it, you don't need your laptop to be running, and you can use your dev boxes in your remote environments to continue a conversation while you're out on your dog walk, or you're sat at a conference in San Francisco, or you're trying to prep for a meeting and you've forgotten what your notes are. You can say to Codex, can you send over the summary of what I need to be asking Mal this morning? And it comes through to your mobile app. So if you've not looked at Codex, it's probably going to be
Yeah.
our tool of the week as well. Well worth downloading. It's available on both Mac and Windows, not just Mac. And like we touched on last week, a lot of these are very much Apple forward products. It's
Mm.
available now. You can look at it and it can help you prep for your meetings. It can help you digest those long running documents, do all the things that if you're using Cowork, you can utilize it, but now you can do it on the go as well.
Yeah, so I absolutely, everybody out there do have a look at it, because it is, as Matt says, as good if not better than Claude now. Obviously, it is kind of like a bit of an arms race where everybody keeps leapfrogging each other, but OpenAI is right up there right now, and actually I think it's a bit cheaper than Claude right now. So Claude,
And
one of the
always
things
on.
about Anthropic, one of the things about Anthropic is it is struggling for compute, because so many people are using Claude Code now that actually they're putting the prices up because they've got to try and throttle some of the demand. I think your stat and one that I saw, you were over in San Francisco and you actually saw somebody from Claude up on stage, didn't you?
We did, yeah. The head of industries, probably the standout presentation for me, but obviously we're big fanboys of Anthropic. So seeing their demand, their model demand being sort of the 5x, and actually they're hitting 80x demand. So the presentation, head of industries was basically a salesperson, but the head of sales for Anthropic, and talk about how they've geared up for that unprecedented level of demand, and how they're not just turning people away by not responding to leads, which sounds very much like our industry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it was an impressive presentation, but you can understand why suddenly they're scrambling, and you would do that, right? If you've got unprecedented demand,
exactly. I mean, if you've
want to
got
charge for it.
Yeah, that 80, exactly. ATX is like insane. That's so mad.
It's
All
my
right, good. So
my
OpenAI,
model prop style.
absolutely. So OpenAI do have a look at Codex. Also OpenAI have been in the news because they are, and indeed Anthropic as well, are both creating kind of new areas of their business where, and again, this comes partly from your sojourn over to San Fran, where people are talking about FDEs. So let's introduce that acronym. What does it mean?
So we actually touched on this without realizing over the last couple of weeks when we were looking at the AI launches by the residential property CRMs, sort of the obviously Repeat have alluded to it, or is it Cortex by Street, Rex with their AI offering, and Alto with their partnerships? So it's great that people are bringing out these agentic options in their platforms, but who's actually going to configure and deploy these when agents a lot of times struggle to even get the system doing email templates and such like? And actually FDEs has come out of that, and they're basically forward deployed engineers. So what Anthropic and OpenAI have realized is it's great having this power and this opportunity, but there's a capability overhang. And we know that there's loads of things we want to do and just don't have the time in the day to sit down and understand it. You've got your squad of rain mals. I've got one, and it's like there's other things I want to build out that I know if I took the time would save me a lot of time, but it's that chicken and egg situation, right? And Anthropic and OpenAI have realized that actually the consulting firms, the more traditional ones, aren't really engaging in with this. And for a long time, the traditional consulting firms were like, well, this isn't going to be a thing. It's going to be over, and you need to deal with us still. And I think they're realizing that now. But Anthropic and OpenAI have thought, well, actually, oh yeah, we'll just set up these businesses ourselves. So OpenAI is called Deploy Co, or the deployment company, and it's very much geared towards those enterprise businesses who want to get more out of OpenAI, but not knowing how. That they'll now send their own forward deployed engineers to sit inside those businesses and set up and then build engineers for them. Sorry, build agents for them. And that's very much OpenAI invested $4 billion in acquiring consulting firms and setting up this unit. And forward deployed engineers was very much the acronym I took away from the San Francisco trip, because there's not just these huge companies like these two, but a lot of smaller businesses who are helping with that capability overhang of saying, look, you want to get this stuff in place. We know you understand it, but you just don't have the time or resources to do it. And it's very much, I sort of said tongue in cheek the other week about GCG being ideally placed for this, but we've already got a couple of forward deployed engineers in place ready to build this sort of stuff out. And it's basically devs in your team who can do AI, but it's a great acronym, right?
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and we will undoubtedly be flinging that around quite a lot more as we go through the rest of this year, for sure. All right, just time for a couple more bits and pieces. Some nice gossip from OpenAI, reportedly preparing legal action against Apple. Not content with having a court case right now with Elon Musk that's been playing out and will continue, I think, into next week when Sam Altman takes the stand. Also, yeah, it looks like they're going to pick a fight with one of the other big dogs in the room, Apple, because Apple has not been nice enough in the App Store about OpenAI. That's kind of it, isn't it? It's basically about the deployment, of OpenAI, ChatGPT, through the Apple deal that it had with them, basically.
That's it. It's when Apple Intelligence wasn't launching, but even before Apple Intelligence, this was if you're asking Siri questions too hard, it would hand over to ChatGPT, and then you get the beeps and the whirs in your ear, and eventually it comes back with a stock response. And they're pretty frustrated that integration was crap, and it's not got the level of subscribers and just oversight that they were expecting, right?
Yeah, that crap is that technical term for the deployment. Indeed,
it's probably an acronym.
So yeah, listen. So that one again, you don't tend to. There are a lot of people, and again, referencing the App Store, who have been very unhappy with the Apple App Store. Not least Elon Musk at some stage when he was crying about the fact that the OpenAI's GPT app was top of the charts and his XAI wasn't getting anywhere. Yeah, listen, it's Apple's ecosystem. I don't know if you necessarily get to fight because basically they kind of dictate what really happens. But we're going to be interested to see how that one plays out. Again, people going sour on their partnerships. Microsoft is quietly shopping around for an OpenAI replacement, and also cancelling some of its Claude code licenses. So, again, it just seems that there's all these tectonic plates are kind of just crunching around each other and moving in slightly different directions. I thought the Microsoft cancelling Claude code was quite interesting because they're going to be trying to use their own one, aren't they?
That's Microsoft, basically. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how the devs are going to react to that. But,
exactly right.
Very much focusing them into the GitHub Copilot CLIs instead of using Claude code. Rather.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been using Copilot out there, but it remains one of the most frustrating experiences of my life is trying to get Copilot to do anything particularly
This is
helpful.
Actually just for the geeks. It's GitHub Copilot, so it's the code one rather than the Windows Copilot. So slightly different, but yeah, frustrating.
And stupidly the same name. I mean, come on. Anyway, all right. So that is our AI and tech news. Let us very quickly dive into our occasional series, Weird AI of the Week. So in Weird AI of the Week, we do try and just bring something from, out in the normal world into the world of AI. So this week is the Chelsea Flower Show, everybody. I'm sure most of you are going to attend, but there has been a row over the fences of the Chelsea Flower Show about AI because one of the guys who he's an award-winning horticulturalist called Matt Keatley, and he's launched an app that can automate garden designs, and this has not gone well in the lawns of SW3 because his new app Spacelift can replicate the work of garden designers and create spaces from scratch. Many people who are listening to this will know that AI has been able to do that for quite a while, really. So the fact that he's kind of formalized it and is launching it on the eve of the Chelsea Flower Show. Yeah, what's your take on this, Matt?
I'll be downloading the app and pointing at my back garden, I think, because as you say, even though you've been able to do it via AI for a while, just having that award-winning horticulturist's take on it is going to be a different matter for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to give apparently people a starting point, a plan, the confidence to actually create something, not just imagine it. There we go.
Exactly. I'm feeling a lot more confident.
That's our Weird AI of the Week. And next up, our tool of the week. And Matt, as you say, I think we've covered this a little bit already in this app, but OpenAI's Codex is something that people need to be paying attention to this week, right?
That's exactly it. If you've got the ChatGPT app, then you're more than likely going to start to see it would come out with the latest update anyway. But if you're a Windows or a Mac user, well worth downloading and having a look. And if you're using Cowork, just chuck some of the situations that you'd normally put at Cowork at Codex and see the difference that comes in between the two.
Absolutely, always worth checking out the comparing and contrasting, because there can be some phenomenal stuff. And I actually kind of often I'll get Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT almost to ask them all the same question and then see what kind of comes back. And one of the things we were doing this week, one of the projects in the team, all three of them came back with the same kind of answer, and that was just really reassuring, because you were like, actually, that probably means that is the best way to go. So yeah, really good for kind of checks and balances on some of the projects.
I think a standout for me actually from last week, did I mention I've been away, was
you didn't know
someone talking about Replit, and Replit's a vibe coding platform for those listening, where Replit uses Anthropic and Claude as the model underneath. So when you're vibe coding building something, but if you ask a particularly pressing question, or you want it to double check something that it's come back with, it says, well, hold on, I'm going to call the architect. And the architect that it calls in is actually then using ChatGPT using that as we talked about this, the more technical developer before, rather than sort of the design-led one. But I love the fact that Replit are using both models, and the architect is the one that's sort of almost the teacher coming in to check your homework sort of approach. So if the big vibe coding platforms are doing that, there's nothing stopping us doing it as well.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that is all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much indeed for listening in. We'll be back next week with plenty more property and AI news. Matt, what are you up to for the rest of the weekend? Are you just sleeping?
It's Everton v Sunderland tomorrow, so it's the last game of the season at home, my last season ticket season, so it'll be a sad day. But it's also next week at Google I.O. on Tuesday and Wednesday, so we'll be keeping a very close eye on what drops from that.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you will have heard that OpenAI has been very noisy. Actually this week we've had Microsoft with xAI, we've had Claude, all of them, and Google has been very, very quiet over the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, while everybody else has been piling the new models. So we anticipate, don't we, that there will be something quite significant coming out of that.
There's
so we will keep you up to date.
New video model coming, isn't there? Definitely.
Yeah, which I can't wait to get my hands on, because I'm a big fan of VO 3.1. So what this one is it looks very exciting. So we will keep you up to date. Do listen in again next week. We will catch up with you again in 7 days. Have great weeks.
Take care.